As if you didn't have enough to worry about today, a group of leading thinkers in New York last night has concluded that we are headed for a collapse of society. We're joined by Yaron Brook, who's the president of the Ayn Rand Society. Yaron, you had a big fundraiser last night, a lot of bigwigs in New York, smart people, so forth, and you came out saying everyone thinks that we are basically screwed.
Well, the mood in the room was definitely that this country is heading towards some kind of collapse, some kind of significant disaster, that everything kind of is lined up and nobody really in the political realm, out there in the culture, seems to have the solutions to the problem facing this country and facing the world. I mean, who knows what's happening in Europe, right, and how far this can go, and whether the European banks can survive, and what kind of effect that would have in America, on the American financial system. But more than that, if we look long term, if we look at the structural problems in the United States, at over $100 trillion of unfunded liabilities, of ongoing deficits, of no political solutions, of nobody talking about real cuts. I mean, they're talking about the edges. Where does this all lead? What is the outcome? And without some political leadership, without some intellectual leadership, people are feeling angst, about the direction in which this country is heading.
So certainly over the last couple of years, it's become clear that the folks who were saying we're going to head right back to full prosperity, a little bit off, most people agree it's going to be a long slog through to work down the debt and so forth. But does it need to lead to a collapse, or can we tweak the entitlement programs, raise the retirement age, maybe cut benefits a little bit, spread it around? Does it necessarily have to lead to disaster?
I think unless we have real structural change, I think it will. Whether that disaster is a year from now, 5 years from now, it might be 40 years from now, I don't know. But there's a fundamental philosophical problem in the culture in which we live that is going to lead us to that disaster. We can tweak the entitlement programs, but you know what? As soon as things get better, we tweak them back and we dial them up again, because unless you change the approach to government, unless you're willing to challenge the very notion of what government needs to do, you're not going to change it in a fundamental way. And as soon as we've seen this before, right? I mean, arguably, Reagan lowered taxes. Very soon after that, taxes went up. Carter and Reagan deregulated. For a little while, there was deregulation out there, but immediately regulations are up. And if you look at just the pages, they're way up over the last 15 years. These things always bounce back. So yeah, during bad times, we'll go and we'll tinker with entitlement. Yeah, you can save Social Security by raising the retirement age, but you know what? I bet you that once it's saved, they'll increase the benefits, a few years from now to buy votes. Unless you make a fundamental change in our approach to entitlement, in our approach to government, it's just we can buy time, but we're not going to change the outcome.
So Ayn Rand, famously self-reliant, or a philosopher of self-reliance.
Yes.
We'll all do it ourselves. So if the Ayn Rand Institute were running the United States, what would the government look like? Would there be homeless people all over the place who just simply aren't self-reliant enough to survive, and a tiny class of incredibly powerful moguls who run the world and are fantastically wealthy? Or do you have a more equal society?
It strikes me as bizarre, the assumption that a large majority of people in the world are not self-reliant. I think everybody can be self-reliant. Everybody can take care of themselves. We're talking about having a job. We're talking about making a living. We're talking about being responsible for your own life, your own future, saving. I think everybody is capable. Yes, there's a fraction of a percent that can't take care of themselves, and that traditionally in American society has been the role for charity. And charity is incredibly generous when it comes to people who really can't take care of themselves. So no, I believe that what you would see is a society of productive, hardworking people taking care of themselves, not asking for others to support them unless they really, really have to.
Lastly, what is this crisis going to look like when we finally hit the point where we can't sustain our current philosophy anymore?
Well, unless there's alternatives, unless people come up with real solutions, the crisis could be anywhere from, a major economic kind of depression, and we learn our lesson and we climb out of it, to, what happened to Rome, which really is, the Dark Ages. Now, I don't expect that. I think we'll rebound. I think we're smart enough to figure this out. I think the culture out there is capable of changing philosophies, of identifying, the right way. But I think we have to remember that civilizations in human history, studying history is a value. If you study history, civilizations have declined, they've disappeared, and other civilizations have risen up. And sometimes in human history, just mankind has gone through long periods of time of just struggling, of it being very hard to survive.
Undoubtedly true. I hope we're not headed for that.
I hope we're not, too, believe me.
Thanks, Yaron.